Black Leather Mojo is quite possibly one of my favourite albums of all time. Was there a time when you thought this could be the band? And was there any talk about doing album number 2? And that's from Ad Braley. We were talking about doing a second album. We went in to rehearse a second album, but it never got off the starting blocks. The first album wasn't the band. In fact, the first album wasn't even meant to be a band. It started out life as a solo album. And then halfway through recording the album, I decided, I don't want to be a solo star. I want to be in a band. So I changed it to a band project. But it was still pretty much, it was Blads played drums, John Poole played bass, and I played everything else. I thought it had enough ingredients to be a band album, but it was never meant to be that. It was meant to be a solo album. It didn't have a title, certainly didn't have a band name. I just came about that during the course of recording it. So yeah, that was never meant to be the band, because we put the band together to promote the album, which had already been recorded. This one is from Ian Smith. Where is your favourite place to get tattooed, physically and geographically? Well, anyone with a lot of tattoos will know that there is no nice places to get tattooed. There's only good reasons to get tattooed. I don't know if you can see this one, but I've got a big one here, which was done when Lemmy died. And it meant a lot to get something big like that had the Wildhearts heart with the lightning strikes through and the Motörhead war pig in the centre. It meant a lot getting it done, because I wanted to do it as tribute to Lemmy, who is arguably one of the most important people in music, certainly one of mine. And when you go down this part, that is, it's special. It's a special kind of pain. One of those kind of pains that when the needle goes in, it's just constant. And then the needle goes out and there's a bit of relief. And then it's back in and it's constant. And this took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. I don't know how many, 13 hours or something like that. Maybe even more. I've got a huge Baphomet on my back that was 20 odd hours. And that was a similar kind of pain. It's funny enough, it's I can't say it painful, but it hurts in a different way on the back because you can't see the needle going in. And the weird thing about tattoos that hurt a lot is it doesn't tend to hurt the area that you're getting tattooed. You can get a tattoo there and it can hurt you in the arm with all your, central nervous system all, joined on and connected. This one was a favourite because of how intense it was. And the intensity just brought back how much it meant that Lemmy wasn't there anymore, and how much I intended the Wildhearts to carry on the mantle of everything that Lemmy had taught me. It was like, you're not allowed to quit, because Lemmy never quit, ever, and that's good enough for me. So that would be my favourite place to be tattooed, just because of what it meant. My favourite place geographically, which one is it? This one here. I would say my favourite place geographically was Japan, because I got tattooed by the fella that tattooed the Yakuza. The Yakuza, as anyone knows, might not know even, is the Japanese mafia. So this guy was hardcore, and he did it with the old style, which was a bamboo twig sharpened with, I think, 3 or 4 little pins on the end, and he'd do it all by hand. And so it takes ages. Now, someone should have told me not to drink the night before. So I got ready for this tattoo, and he said, "So you didn't drink yesterday?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did. I drank a lot yesterday." And he was like, "Oh, no." Okay. And he'd started this tattoo, and he didn't stop for about 5 hours. Literally didn't take a break, stuck it in the ink and just went going. And there was a fella behind him who was just mopping his brow. Reason why they should have asked me, or the reason why he asked me, "Did you drink?" and said, "Oh no," when I replied to the affirmative, was because alcohol thins your blood out. So effectively, it was a bloodbath. There was a lot more blood than there should have been, and it just went all over the place, to the point where people were calling people around going, "You want to see how much blood this is? It's hilarious." So I had members of the Yakuza walking into the room, and you know they're Yakuza because they've got that kind of pompadour hair and the most expensive suit you've ever seen, and they're coming in to watch the bloodbath. And now that is a memory that takes some beating. A, getting the traditional Japanese tattoo, and B, being such a fucking mess that the Yakuza were coming in to have a look. That was fantastic. That was such a cool experience. Brilliant. Brilliant. I'll stick in another couple because I want to, and because it's my podcast, because I really enjoy doing these things. This is from The Seas, Ceys, The Seas. I met Lemmy once in person in the Rainbow, and he was amazing and such a gent. What did he mean to you? Oh my God. Right. I grew up without a dad. No idea what happened to my original dad. He might have died. Don't know. He fucked off a long time ago and never kept in touch. So I grew up without a father figure, my whole life without a father figure. So I had two father figures growing up in my life, and one was David Bowie and one was Lemmy. Now imagine if you have two fathers, one is Bowie and one is Lemmy. That's a pretty fucking awesome education. I did well with my dads. Lemmy meant never giving up, never slouching. I mean, Lemmy always looked the bollocks all of the time. I remember once he was asked, why do you dye your beard? I dye my beard, obviously. Why do you dye your beard? And he said, because if I didn't, I'd look like Willie Nelson. Who the fuck wants that? And I was like, yeah, who wants Lemmy to look like an old grey man? Maybe some people do, but I didn't. I wanted Lemmy to look like Lemmy. I wanted Lemmy to be Lemmy. And I fortunately got to tour them a few times, got to meet him and get to know him quite well. And he lived up to every expectation that I had. Now, I've met a lot of people in bands that didn't live up to the expectation. Earlier on, I mentioned Kiss. Lemmy was everything that I wanted him to be. His work ethic was a massive inspiration to me. He'd make an album, go on tour, make an album, go on tour. There was never any talk of Lemmy quitting when the original lineup, which wasn't even the original lineup, the original lineup was Larry Wallace and the other guy, and then it was Fast Eddie and Filthy Animal, obviously, and then that broke up, and then he had a new lineup. I loved that. I loved the fact that he was like, well, I'm not going to stop. People can get off the train if they want, but that train just keeps rolling. Lemmy just is everything to my idea of what a rock star should be, and not just a lazy bastard, because a lot of rock stars are just lazy bastards. They get rich, they get famous, they sit on their arse. Lemmy was a worker. He had a graft ethic, but he was also a gentleman. He had a really good outlook on how to treat women, the respect he had for women. So, people might say he was a misogynist. He wasn't. He was just from an era that had a lot of sex. He was from the summer of love. He was from the 60s. I got no problem with Lemmy wanting to shag about. It was never really my thing. I never was really that much of a shagger. I just liked girls. Lemmy just liked lots of girls, but that was lots of girls like Lemmy. I always had girlfriends anyway. That was my thing. But yeah, Lemmy meant everything. And the second part of the question is, do you feel that CG should have done more for his title as a Wildheart? I don't care. If people want to call themselves, I understand commerce. I understand that if he called himself, Chris Jagdar, he wouldn't sell as many records as he calls himself CG Wildheart. It doesn't matter to me at all. If people want to call themselves Wildheart, as I said earlier on, there was a Dave Wildheart. Do you mind people using the name Wildheart? No, not at all. Absolutely not. I've got no. It's flattering. In fact, it's fairly flattering that people want to take this name that I thought of, that I didn't think of. Barry Burgess from the Architects thought of the name. It's not even my name. I love it. Do I think CG did as much work as me in the Wildhearts? Of course not. But that means nothing. That's that. I wanted to do as much work. I wanted to write as many songs as I did. CG didn't want to write as many songs as that. He wants to write that many songs now. Great. None of it means that. I wish him nothing but the best. I want him to be happy. I want him to be productive. I want him to carry on the name. Doesn't fucking matter to me. no problem with it. No problem whatsoever. Not even tiniest little bit of a problem. I've got no problem with anyone from the band wanting to use the band's name. You know, knock yourself out, fill your boots, mate. A couple of more questions. One from Steve O. I'm really enjoying yours, but which podcast do you listen to yourself? I don't. I've never listened to podcasts. I've never had any interest in podcasts because they last too long. I haven't got an hour to throw into a podcast, let alone 3 hours to throw into a podcast. I don't listen to anyone's podcasts. That's why I jumped into this with the same spirit as I jump into everything that I do. Just dive in, both feet, and find out what happens. And whatever does happen, that's the way that you did it. You can't do it any other way. And if I try to copy someone else's podcast, I would have failed. And I wouldn't have been able to maintain it. I wouldn't have been able to be consistent. And I would have ended up not wanting to do it. So I've got no interest in other people's podcasts, great as I imagine they are. I have heard bits and pieces of Bill Burr's podcast when I'm travelling with Ben, because he likes to listen to that. It's good. Passes a bit of a journey, but no, it's not my thing. I really have got no interest in other people's podcasts, and I'm really, really glad that you like mine. And I'll never the twain shall meet. And this is from Todd, the last one. Who would you say are your top 5 musical influences? Which I can't say. In a million years, I couldn't say my top 5 because I've got billions of musical influences. Top 5, I would say, just off the top of my head, I made a little note here. Tim Smith from Cardiacs, because he just changed the way I look at how you write a song. You know, I've written verse, chorus, solo, chorus, pretty much all my life. And then I heard the Cardiacs and I realised that's not how you write a song. That's not how he writes a song. It changed everything. And then I was lucky enough to get the chance to work with Tim Smith. When I was able to afford a producer on Silver Ginger 5, there was no one else in the world I even wanted to look at doing an album with. Tim Smith was my first and last choice. Fortunately, he said yes, and he taught me so much. And then I was fortunate enough to do a bunch of albums after that with him in his house. So I got to stay in his house, and he continued to teach me right until his death. Huge influence. Tim Smith. Richard Thompson taught me about writing lyrics, because he is, obviously a folky and a very, very underrated guitar player. Whenever you see lists of the greatest guitar players of all time, he's never ever in the fucking lists. You have Dave Grohl in there, you have Kurt Cobain in there, you have Pete Townsend in there. All had a really good effect on music, but as good guitar players as Richard Thompson, fuck off. Richard Thompson is an amazing guitar player. He's beyond amazing. He's a different sport to most people, but his lyrics are so dark and so smart. And when he's writing a lyric that is meant to convey heartache, fucking hell, it hurts. But there's not a word wasted. And when I first started getting into Richard Thompson, I was put off by Richard Thompson because I'm not really that into folk. Certainly got into it later on, but I just figured, he's a folky, nothing to do with me. And it was someone I was writing to online or doing a form spring, actually. It was Ask Ginger on Form Spring. And someone said, I will listen to Trail of the Dead, So Divided, if you listen to Pour Down Like Silver by Richard and Linda Thompson. I was like, okay, I'll put it on. I'll put your folky record on. And it flattened me. Person was completely right. If you're watching this, please get in touch. I owe you a drink. But the lyrics just nailed, and I've always been into lyrics, but after that point I was just like, I will struggle with shit lyrics from this point onwards, and I have done. And there's a lot of 70s bands that I love because of the shit lyrics, but after Richard Thompson there was a point where I just can't read or take seriously weak lyric writing, lazy lyric writing. Just rhyming anything with anything. I've just got no time for it. Yeah, a lot of people have. A lot of people don't care about lyrics. But, for me, that Richard Thompson really did nail the fact that there's no need to be lazy with your words. There's no need to write words that are flippant, that don't mean anything. There's no need. Same as there's no need to put shitty, unimaginative guitars on your record. There's no need. If you want to, if you like shitty lyrics, then great. But you are representing shit lyrics and lazy guitars. Good luck. Well done. Richard Thompson, musical influences, it all started for me with the Sweet. 73, 74, I'd like the Sweet. I'd heard them on the radio, but they were on top of the pops, and instantly my parents hated them. I say my parents, I was very young, and I think my dad was still around, even though he was in and out the picture. I barely remember what he even looked like. But Sweet came on, and they both hated them. So I remember thinking, well, I like this. I'm disagreeing with my parents. This means something. These are mine. And I also thought something changed. This means something. And I think at that point, I saw my future. I realised what I was going to do. And it wasn't going to be working in a factory. So from that point, I think I never took seriously the idea of having a job. I never took seriously the idea of going to school to get a trade so I can use that trade at the end of school. I knew I was going to make music. I didn't know how. I was, from South Shields. People didn't leave South Shields to go and make music. I never met anyone who left South Shields to go and make music. It all started with the Sweet. I've told this story a bunch of times, but I was just like, the Sweet have changed everything. They've put a division between me and what my parents think. They're about 8 years old or something. And then the camera zooms into Andy Scott's guitar, and he's got a sticker that looked like a smiley sticker from a distance, but it zoomed in and it was an inverted smiley with the word shit underneath. And I was just like, you can be on the telly and you can cause trouble and you can piss parents off. I think the blueprint for everything I wanted to do with the Wildhearts was nailed within those 3 minutes in 1973-74 when I saw Sweet. There's no doubt in my mind that I would have made music before without that, but it definitely galvanized what I want to do. And I'm still working from the same blueprint, to be honest. Big riff, great verse, killer chorus. Lemmy obviously was a massive influence, as I've just described. Really did solidify everything that a rock star should be. And the main one being aware you're a rock star, being aware that that's your job, that's what your job means. Being a rock star, it's not for you. You don't walk past reflective surfaces and look at yourself. You represent something to other people, and that's what Lemmy restored it to me. I never saw Lemmy slob into a gig in sweatpants. He walked into every gig dressed like Lemmy. He must have got out of bed and they were the clothes that Lemmy wore all day. And I fail to maintain that all the time. Sometimes I do slob around, but I try not to, especially, if I'm representing the group. At least I can do, dress in black, unless they invent a darker colour, But for this podcast, I don't. I wear a t-shirt. But I am going to wear a different t-shirt for every time I do a podcast. Someone asked me, am I going to have a different guitar? I'm going to have a different guitar, a different cushion, and a different picture, hopefully, on every podcast. And if I can do billions of these, then I'll have to buy billions of guitars. Yay! Make my podcast a success. And my last musical influence was all obviously David Bowie, who taught me how to be fearless in your presentation, how to be fearless in the style of music that you want to approach. There shouldn't be any style of music that you like and understand that you shouldn't want to investigate. Bowie, from the first or second single I ever got was Driving Saturday by David Bowie, and I still listen to that song and think that what came first, my love of that type of music or that kind of music? It's got everything in. It's got like a 50s doo-wop element, but it's very fresh, great lyrics again. And then he changed, and then he changed again, and then he changed again. One of the things I love about Bowie is he had a lot of phases that I don't really like, but just as he did a phase, I'm not going to, listen to that much. He'd do something, come out with something else, like Heroes or, Absolute Beginners. Oh my God, Absolute Beginners killed me. Another one where I just broke into tears when I heard that. It's so beautiful. It made me burst out crying. Bowie's fearlessness has really informed my songwriting, not just songwriting, my approach to music. You know, to me, there's no difference in doing something like Ghost in the Tanglewood or Hey Hello or Mutation. It all is just, elements of what I love about music. And I'm glad about it, because, when someone tells me, oh, it sounds like Bowie, what are you talking about? What does Bowie sound like? Someone says, oh, that song sounds like your solo stuff. I feel the same. I feel like there is no such thing as a Bowie sound. There is no such thing as my solo stuff sound. It's an embracing of any musical genre that gets me excited. And that's I put that down to my love of Bowie and his inspiration and his effect on me as a musician. Thank you. This has been really good. But for now, this has been me. I'll see you around, and I'll see you next time.